The keynote address is named in honor of Gay S. Steele, who served as our Capitol's Director for Multicultural Affairs for 21 years. Steele was the primary force behind Capitol's annual celebration of the King holiday. By bestowing such an honor and naming the address after Steele, her programmatic vision and legacy will continue for many years on. This year's keynote address will be given by not only a mental health advocate, author of Be Free, Be You, and speaker, but also an inspiration to women all over the world, Achea Redd. In early 2016, Achea was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. After hiding her condition out of fear and shame, she quickly realized it was only getting worse, affecting her physically to the point of a nervous breakdown. It wasn't until she acknowledged the situation with her loved ones, seeking out treatment from her therapist and doctor, that things started getting better. As a form of self-expression and healing, she started blogging. She created her own blog, sharing her feelings about mental health and authenticity. The flow of support she received was from the community compelled her to create a space to empower and equip women with the necessary tools to use their voices and become their best, most authentic selves. Achea uses her life experience and mental health disorder to help women find their voice and let it out. Those goals are central to her new book, Be Free, Be You. She is the official sponsor of Nationwide Children's Hospital On Our Sleeves movement. I had the honor to dine with her last night and hear about her journey and her story. In those few hours, she truly showed how amazing she was. She was energetic, she was enthusiastic, but most importantly, she was authentic. It is my honor to introduce this year's keynote speaker, Achea Redd.
Hey, everybody. When I walked in to dinner last night, I was running late, and I walked and I busted through the door like I often do, and I'm like, hey! And so they told me to come and not say good morning, but to say, hey! So I'm here to say hey, and I'm so happy to be here. This young woman standing beside me, come closer, come closer. I don't bite. She literally is an amazing young woman. And the rest of her committee members, I mean, just everyone, the faculty, how they welcomed me into the community, how they talked to me last night. It was just amazing to hear their stories and for them to just be so vocal and so honest and so open. And so I just want to say, we're going to change the world, girlfriend.
Yes, we are.
So, couple things. I have 45 minutes. Now, I'm pretty sure that there are bets out there in my row of people out there of how I'm going to go off the script and I'm not going to speak from the speech that I wrote. That's typically how I go, like I'm just off script all the time. But I wrote a really good speech. And like, I really want to say it, so I'm going to say it because there are so many things that are on my heart that I'm just going to tell you the truth. I don't have the mental capacity to remember everything that's on this iPad. So bear with me, as I look down and as I read. I will try very often to look up and connect with you. Know that I'm only doing this in this way because there's so much in my heart. My heart is so full. I am so humbled, so I'm going to just be quiet for like 10 seconds and just take this moment in. Because what you guys have to understand is that 3 years ago, I had the nervous breakdown. And you are looking at someone who is not only living with a mental disorder, but is thriving with a mental disorder. Every day, I take steps to try to be a better human, a better person, but more importantly, better for myself so that I can impact the world around me. And no, they're not crazy for inviting a girl who brings a doll. I promise that little Achea goes with me everywhere. And she made her debut appearance when I went and I keynoted the YWCA's event this fall. She was given to me by a board member, and I love her because she is on brand with my colors. But she also has the word fearless on the t-shirt, which is actually the first word in the acronym FART. Yes, I said it. And for those of you who haven't Google me, and you will find that I am the girl who created at Real Girls Fart. Yep, and you can follow me. I'm searching for followers, actually. This doll, I know it may seem very trivial and silly to some, but it is not to me, because as a little girl, I shrunk myself a lot. And I was always the girl who questioned things and how things worked and wanted to know the why behind everything. And for me, curiosity did not kill the cat. I sought to be a young woman that was curious. I teach my daughter, who is here today, my son, who is here, my husband and I, we teach them to be curious, to ask the questions that no one else wants to ask, and to also be willing to listen to the answers that no one else wants to hear. And so this little girl right here is with me today to help remind me to be brave, to help remind me that even though I'm a 39-year-old woman, there still is a little girl that lives on the inside of me. Just like there's a little girl or a little boy that lives on the inside of you, no matter how old you are, that believes that dreams are possible and they will come true with hard work and with intention. And that you don't have to be status quo. You can break out of the norm. So this is little Achea. And she's going to sit here, and as you listen to me, just be reminded to check in with yourself as I speak today with that little boy, that little girl, no matter the age inside of you, that had big dreams for themselves or for the world around them. To tap back in and to check back in. Today I want to talk about radical faithfulness. Looking for the kingdom of God in everyday moments. Radical faith looks a lot like faithfulness. What do I mean? Well, radical faith is having faith in something that is way beyond your understanding, something that's bigger than you. In other words, we must have the faith to continue doing something that we don't understand. The faith to push through no matter how it will turn out. Sometimes in our journey, we even face divine inversions. And those divine inversions are the many ways in which God acts contrary, not merely to physical nature, but to what humans take to be the natural order of things in the social and political world. God inverts natural orders, both human and physical, to reveal that it is God himself who acts. Now, what is a miracle? A miracle is defined as an effect or extraordinary event in the physical world that surpasses all known human or natural powers and is ascribed to the supernatural cause. It is often considered as a work of God. Miracles sometimes come in very big ways, and we are wowed. But they can also be in the daily, unsexy work of choosing justice and loving people. Truly loving people is an opportunity to change the culture by being an active participant of God's movement in the world. Moving mountains one stone at a time and finding God in the smallest of moments and understanding that if one hurts, we all hurt. The late Dr. King said, there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor political, nor popular, but he must take it because his conscience is telling him that it is right. This is why I started blogging, because I had a deep longing for community. I needed to find my tribe. I wasn't going to wait for that to come to me. I decided to create it myself. I used my uncomfortable, ugly scars of trauma, pain, and at many times cognitive dissonance to give others the courage to be okay with showing their scars by telling their truth in vulnerability. I've always been an open book. My mom is here. She'll tell you. She had to tell me to be quiet all the time. But 3 years ago, when I had my breakdown, AKA my breakthrough, I decided to use it to break out. To break out of what was comfortable, what was safe, to break out of what was my expected path. I used it to break free of self-imposed limits, to think outside the box, yes, name real girls fart, get curious with myself and the world around me, and to deconstruct my entire belief system. Dr. King did the same thing. His father and others told him that he was outside of the will of God. Should he pursue a path of social justice? But he couldn't shake it. It was in his bones. It was in his God-given DNA. And thank God he didn't listen, because none of us would be here today. I pause here to tell you that I don't care what anybody tells you. I don't care what the doctor tells you. I don't care what your psychiatrist tells you. I don't care what the psychologist tells you. I don't care what you tell you. The only opinion that matters is what God thinks of you. I am of the same mindset as Dr. King was when he said that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. When I made the decision to put aside the shoulds, right? We all have shoulds that we live with. I should say this, I should go here, I should do that. It was at that moment that I decided I didn't want to be a well-behaved woman. I wanted to be a world changer, a voice to the voiceless. I wanted to challenge the system by first challenging myself to step up to the plate and question my thoughts and my beliefs about the world around me. It wasn't easy revealing to the world all of my valley moments in a world that only reveals their moments on the mountaintop, in the world that we call social media. These visions of perfection that don't exist. What they don't tell you in the caption is that they have a camera crew and the perfect lighting. I don't have any of those things. And guess what? I still can't take a great selfie. But I chose to reveal those scars. Deep inside, there was a moment of deconstructing the meaning of what the true gospel was and how I was supposed to share it. I'm getting emotional because I know that it was agonizing for me. It was what I call the great undoing. I was undone of everything that was. And like Tarzan, if you remember the movie Tarzan, he jumped from one vine to the next. But the catch is that he had to jump from the one he was on in order for the other one to appear. And that was how that season for me was. It was like, God, I don't know who I am. I don't know what you're doing, and I don't know why I'm suffering. I don't even know if this has an end. But I'm going to jump off of this vine that I'm on, and in faith, I'm going to jump, hoping that the next vine appears. And the next vine appeared. And the next vine appeared. And the next vine appeared. It was radical. And it's because of those yeses, of jumping off of the vine to get to the next, that I stand here today 3 years later at Capital University. This was not in my plan at all. My ego's not this big, okay? I'd rather be behind my computer, like typing away about the things in the world. But this was on God's radar. By default, the easiest way for me was to take my message to the people in the pews every Sunday, because I am the daughter of a preacher. So, if you can't tell. But there was something in me that always longed for more. I longed for the different, the true and eternal harvest. I wanted to speak to the ones that the majority of the world assumed were broken, unlovable, and hard to understand. Because the gospel truly means good news. And on my platform, I share the gospel every day by telling people that even in their darkest place, the good news is that they aren't alone. That I see them and I hear them, that I love them right where they are, and they don't need to be fixed because they aren't broken. I meet them heart to heart, not head to heart. A few months ago, I was at the YWCA event, and after I spoke, a woman that was serving at the party afterwards, she came up to me and she says, "Hey, are you the one that wrote the book?" I said, "Yeah." She says, "You know, I had to stop and I had to listen to what you were saying, because I'm known for saying when I speak, and I'll say it to you, but you probably have already heard, but you know, when you're on the airplane, right, and they tell you, they say, should, pressure rise in the cabin, you are to first assist yourself by putting your own oxygen mask on and then assist other people." And so that was the message that she heard. And she said, "Achea, I don't have any peace. My house is in shambles. I have a daughter who's disrespectful and we fight all the time. I let a friend room with me and it's just turned my world upside down." And she says, "Tonight, after I left here, before I heard you, I was going to leave and I was going to go to the hospital and get hooked up to an IV so that I could have some peace." She said, "But tonight, after hearing you tell me to put my oxygen mask on," she says, "I'm going home and I'm reclaiming my space." I'm kicking my daughter and her boyfriend out. I'm sending my best friend back on a plane. If not tonight, the first thing smoking tomorrow. And I tell you guys what, as I pause here for a second, that was worth more than any book sale. That was worth more than any speaker's fee. That was worth more than any of the hundreds of people that were there that night to hear me. Is that if I was able to speak from a place of truth and vulnerability by sharing my story and showing my scars that prevented a woman from going to a hospital to receive unnecessary drugs. We want to talk about the opiate crisis. And yes, it is a thing. And it is a thing in Black, brown, and poor communities, absolutely. But how are they becoming like that? What circumstances are they in that is creating this place of dissonance, this lack of peace, to where they feel like their world is so bad and so torn apart that their only escape is going to the hospital and getting hooked up in an IV, or going and getting drugs off the street? What does that say about they'd rather risk their lives with one hit of fentanyl than live another day in their reality? Something has to change. Something has to be different. There has to be more people that rise up, that tell their stories, that use their platforms, that use their stage and their influence to be able to inspire these people to a place of not just being inspired and oohing and eyeing, because I don't do this for followers. I don't inspire people just to inspire people. I inspire people to action. And if I can't inspire you to act, then I haven't done my job. Today, when I leave here, I want you all to be inspired to go into your community and do what you need to do. And now the bet's off and I'm off my speech and I'm done now because I'm getting ready to just go for it. So you win, Adam. I get so bothered by how the hierarchy has been set in our world. There is like this fixed hierarchy that if you're not the preacher to thousands or the top tier political figure, that your job isn't as important. So the overworked social worker, the stay-at-home mom, like I used to be, and I said, man, I know I was made for more than wiping noses and changing diapers, but to the stay-at-home mom, let me tell you something. You're changing the world one diaper at a time. Your influence into those children's lives when you're going into the classroom and you're in the trenches of the work, the front lines of the work. It's your responsibility to love on those babies. Of course, we want them to know how to read and write and compute. But have they been loved on? Have they been told how special they are and how they can do anything they want to do? We're overdiagnosing our kids with ADHD, and what used to be just a shy kid is now we've got social anxiety disorder. And now we were talking about this at dinner, like the DSM is like now on the 5th edition because we keep adding diagnoses for what is like normal behavior for kids sometimes. Have you been to Linden? Have you seen the food desert where you cannot find fresh food? And so these kids are going to school, literally living off of donuts, Cheetos, Tahitian treat, and then in school for 6 hours expected to maintain cognitive function. I couldn't do it. And then we want to give them a pill. Am I against drugs? No, I take one every day. I'm not anti-medicine, but I'm for all the things. There's a multitude of things that we're not exploring. And I say in my mental health advocacy and activism that the resources are plentiful. I know about biofeedback and neurofeedback and all of these things that we're researching, but we have the ability to try to experiment on kids and try to get them from an alternative approach better. It's worth a try. What's interesting to me is that I kid you not, I have this, I'm not speaking from a parent that, doesn't have kids that struggle. I have kids that struggle and have been victims in a school that did not meet and attend to their needs. So what's interesting to me is that when I ask the question of a doctor about neurofeedback, well, that's still experimental. Well, so is every other darn drug that you give my kid. The only way that we really know, right, that any drug works or anything works is genetic testing, which now they refuse to do on kids unless it's in dire of circumstances. So they'd rather just give them Ritalin or Adderall and then pray that they don't become addicts in the future. What I want you guys to do when you hear these types of things, I want you to get a fire inside of you, to get angry about it enough to do something, to speak up, to raise your voices and say that this is not right, to ask yourself the question. I posed the question last night. I said, I was watching a documentary. And I'm just a geek nerd when it comes to anything psychology. And I was watching this documentary, and one of the things that really struck me was how we are over-medicating our mentally ill. And I said, why do you think that there's such a stigma? Why do you think that people are decidedly not getting treated? Why are so many people suffering in silence? And they're like, it's because they're shamed. They're ashamed that they don't want to be one of those people. And I tell you, for those of you who do not know my story, I will repeat this part of it. Is that 3 years ago, I had no choice. You either deal with life or life deals with you, period. And life dealt with me. And I was in an all-out identity crisis. I was daughter of a pastor. I had a expected path. I don't want to tell anybody this, but I could really sing. And, I used to lead worship. Don't ask me to sing anything. And that was what I did, and that was what people thought that I was going to do with the rest of my life. But I say in my book that I never intended for it to be something that anyone else knew that I possessed. It was the way that I communicated with God. And so I remember fighting with an unknown diagnosis. And then 3 years ago, life just dealt with me in this identity crisis of being a bishop's daughter turned worship leader extraordinaire turned NBA wife. And I was like, I don't know who the heck I am. And I never wanted to hurt myself, but I wanted to disappear. I wanted to get in my car. I wanted to drive far west as I could. And I wanted to never look back because I felt like since I couldn't get it together, my husband and my kids were better off without me. That, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, is not a choice. To feel that way about yourself is not a choice. So let's clear up the misconception now. Mental health is brain health. It is not where I decide one day that I'm going to get up and be happy. It's just not that simple. If it were, I would choose it every single day of my life. I have to take 2 prescriptions every day to level the chemicals out in my brain. I've tried to wean myself with the doctor's permission 3 times from my medicine. And each time ended right back up on the medicine. Because I was in such a dark place. So you know what's going to change the stigmatization of mental health is how we view it. And the conversations that we have surrounding it. We have to get really comfortable with being uncomfortable. And there is discomfort in revealing our scars. There is discomfort in revealing that we are not perfect. There is discomfort in being okay with not being okay. It hurts. It's lonely. It's isolating. And the worst thing that any of us can do to someone who is struggling or battling with a mental health issue is to say, just relax. It'll be okay. Or, why do you feel that way? Do I need a reason? That's what I used to ask. Like, well, why are you anxious? I don't know. I just woke up and my brain told me I was. And so when we understand mental health from that perspective and from that place of it is brain health, right? So that we have the chemicals in our brain, the serotonin. And if all of that's not lining up, then the melatonin gets all messed up and then we become insomniacs. We're not sleeping. And if you don't know if you're on the verge of a mental health crisis, let me help you figure it out. The first thing to go is your digestive system. So if you have a kid who complains about a lot of belly aches, that's the first place to check. I know we want to say, just go to the bathroom. No. Ask them what's going on the playground. Ask them what's going on in the school. Because that's an underlying anxiety issue. I remember before I was diagnosed, my mom is here to testify that I had a lot of belly issues. You know, another part of my mental health journey that I have been very hesitant to talk about very openly is just the fact that, you know, I'm still recovering from an eating disorder. Yep, I said it. I'm Black. And I am recovering from an eating disorder. Black people do get them. But what's really interesting to me is like how I went from 12 years old to 38 years old undiagnosed. And in that point, I was purging and I was the sickest that I had ever been, bless you. And I talked about this at dinner. I said, this is definitely a social justice and a disparity, right, among our people. Because different ethnicities, right, we are able to fly under the radar because we have curves. And so our BMI doesn't allow us to be sick enough to be treated. So the assumption was, in order for me to get treated, I had to get sicker. And in order for insurance to pay for it, I got to get real sick. And then in 8 weeks, when I gained like a little bit of weight, they're moving you out the door. Let's go. Next one. But guess what? Black and brown people can't afford it. Those treatment facilities are crazy expensive. And so the assumption is, it's like, oh, your BMI is fine. Like, you're not skinny enough to be anorexic. They look at the BMI. They don't look at the behavior, right? And so here I am, sicker than ever, from 12 years old to 38 years old, the whole time. And then when I got 38, I got the wrong diagnosis. Oh, you must be like a binger. I ain't never binged a day in my life. And then I finally got to the root of it, and that was when I started getting the treatment that I need. But guess what? I'm coming from a place of privilege, a place of knowledge, a place where I'm able to advocate for myself. What happens to those that don't have people that understand and know enough to advocate for themselves? That's where all of you come in. Y'all weren't here. Y'all weren't sent here just to, maybe y'all were, maybe some of y'all were made to come. I don't know. But I believe that everything happens for a reason. And my question for you all today is, what are you all going to do with the platform that you have? See, we're all missionaries. The kingdom of God is in everyday moments. We got this whole thing messed up that we think that, we got to go all the way over to China to be a missionary. Or we got to go to the nursing home. But who and how are you affecting change in your sphere of influence? Jonathan Edwards said that it is our responsibility to find out where God is moving and go in that direction. Where is God moving? That's the question. And where can you join in? Where can any of us join in? How can we help facilitate the movement that's already moving? To the stay-at-home mom who's changing diapers every day, wiping noses. To the sanitation worker that we don't even give eye contact to. To the postal worker who's walking with his head down with his earbuds in, and we don't even bother to smile or to speak to him. To our teachers who are grossly underpaid and overworked. To our social workers and our psychologists who you can't even get in to see a good therapist at Nationwide Children's for 9 months. What can we do? We can become God's movement through the earth, moving one stone at a time. That is radical faithfulness. Radical faithfulness takes radical faith. Doing something that may not be popular, according to Dr. King. It may not even be appreciated. It may not even be understood. No one knew where I was coming from when I started the platform Real Girls Fart. They were like, what? In Columbus? Conservative? You don't say that word. That's the point. You're proving my point. That's why I'm going to say that word. And I decided to take something that was really, really, really deemed as inappropriate and negative and turn it into a positive. Real girls are fearless. We are authentic. We are rescuers and we are trailblazers. We cannot rescue the rest of the world without first rescuing ourselves, though. So please go get yourself some help first. And don't be afraid to show your scars. As my husband often has said, people are more impressed with our scars than they are our trophies. And I will tell you that just because it isn't big, just because it isn't sanctioned and you're not pastor to thousands of people, I stand here to tell you as I close today that in the kingdom of God, small is the new big. So if you are holding one hand, you are holding the hands of all the world. Really quickly as I close, I want you to grab the hand of the person next to you. Sorry, if you're grossed out, I apologize. Should have got a flu shot. All right, we all got hands. I want you to squeeze the person's hand next to you. Then I want you to let go. That's what a miracle feels like. Thank you, guys.